Hi, hello, welcome. We're about to start. A lot of people already. Hello there. We have 80s, we have AVC members. I see Clocky to name, Marianne Blue, Axel, Anna Builder, Jag. So everyone, thank you for being here on time. We're going to start. So today is our 19th ABC Subcommittee meeting, and as you know, this is a very special one. We have special guests today, so we're going to discuss a very specific, relevant topic nowadays. We're gonna go into this in just a few minutes. So thank you for being here. As always, and I think this is a very important opportunity to mention. See, since I am seeing new faces, that we're going to share our notion with all the information that you need if this is your first time. Well, everything you're going to find it in here includes our previous meetings. So if you have missed any of them, you can recall them watching in the link. All our documents are in there as well, and we have also a very huge Latin audience, so we have documents there also in Spanish. Having said that, to everyone that always comes, thank you so much. And if you appreciate our work and share our values, please become an AD of our Sovereign Finance ABC. Also, the Aligned Governance Strategy document, you can find it in the notion I just shared. Well, just to mention that this 19 AVC subcommittee meeting has been organized and prepared by the current two members of Sovereign Finance AVC, Sid Latam and Alex Root. Shout out to them. And I'm seeing a lot of them already here, so thank you so much. And so, what will we cover today? Well, of course, we have two special guests. Thank you for being here, Sam Har and Buffalo. We're going to debate, which is have an interesting discussion on which is the best code base for new chains, it Cosmo or Solana. Well, we have brought this special guest to tell us more about their stacks. That is the main topic of today, because of course today's topic is protocol scopes, and let's review a little bit. It includes everything related to the development and upkeep of new chain, of its core protocol modules, smart contract ecosystem, the connections to other blockchains. That's why this is the perfect time to get further information into this. And well, that's why we have brought this, but this is not only if we have time, we are also going to review the most relevant information. By the way, shout out to our 80s, shout out to Blue, Clocky, Palk, because they're important information they have included in their public documents. So that's also what we're going to mention. Something that I'm going to mention right now, and also before ending the call, is that we have already made public our Q4 Sovereign Finance Aligned Scope Proposals document. A big shout out to Blue, who has already provide us feedback on this. I'm going to share it right now, and I'm going to share it before the meeting ends. And of course, as always, encourage everyone, actually, all the ecosystem actors, especially our 80s, to provide us with the feedbacks on our proposal. Move on into that. Okay, so we're going to start first giving some context of why we decided to have this debate slash discussion. If you recall, a few weeks ago, Rune posted on the forum about this, and this is the title: "Explore a fork of the Solana codebase for new change." I'm going to share the link of the post. Just give me a second. There. And of course, this brought a lot of attention. Not just as you know, it's usually people that comment on the forum and very involved into Maker. But this particular post, well, reached to a wider audience, even outsiders. That meaning not people that are into the Maker ecosystem. And of course, this was a very interesting, because is what was saying is that basically with this new chain, that it's basically a new blockchain, is going to be part of the fifth phase of Endgame, that it's going to take approximately 3 years. And so um, he started like to mention, let's say, candidates for this new chain. And so, well, of course, it mentions that about Solana, VM, and Cosmos for new change. Uh, and this is the reason why it has become like an interesting discussion. If you see the forum, there are a lot of comments, point of views. But if we focus on the new chain, well, it aims to provide robust foundation for the Maker protocol. And well, in this specific post, of course, we can see that Rune has mentioned that Solana has been preferred for the code base. Meanwhile, Cosmos is also considered. That's why we have these two guests today. Let's not forget that the goal is to build strong symbiotic relationship with the chosen ecosystem. Something else to mention here is that this is going to serve as a blockchain hosting backend logic for DAO tokenomics and Maker governance security. Some key components that I like to add are about the new stable, new gov token. That let's recall, new stable is the upgraded version of DAI. New gov token is the upgraded version of MKR. But meanwhile, DAI and MKR will remain functional on Ethereum. And then it also mentions about, and this includes on the 5 phases of Endgame, and on the 5th phase, it mentions as well about the hard fork, governance for recovery, for governance disputes. Of course, the mention of AI assistant governance backend optimized for AI assisted DAO governance. The mention, of course, of tokenomics logics, sub-DAO incubation, mini DAOs, gamified sub-DAO competition, um, and more. But that's the reason why we have decided to focus on this, because the protocol scope mentions and focus as well in new chain. Okay. Then, of course, these are kind of like the topics that we are focusing on. And if there is anything that there is no mentioning here, but it is relevant and it's going to help us with this, please, I encourage you to write in the chat comments, questions about this, so we can everyone can understand more. Before starting, to our guests, just mention that not everyone is technical, so please, if you could give us the details in a very friendly way, so more people can understand, even not the ones that are devs or into technical stuff. That will be very appreciated. We have decided these topics because, of course, to understand the unique features that each technology stack offers and how they could benefit maker, and also to gather insights into the performance of nodes with the stack, which is of course crucial for operational stability, um, as well as strategies for mitigating NEV, which is a common concern in blockchain system. Then we have also prioritize the exploration of the development tools available for building on the technology stack. And of course, examine the costs and requirements for setting up validators in the ecosystem, and of course, discussing incentives for validators. That is very relevant into this. Also understand the consensus mechanism for the stack, the minimum number of validators required for security, strategies to prevent attacks. Uh, then when it comes to the integration with Ethereum, we're trying to focus on the best methods to integrate the technology stack with Ethereum. Very focused in securing funds. Then to address whether teams should have people very technical, meaning specialists with expertise in the stack, or if EVM experienced teams can transition to the new stack. And then about using Solana Cosmos as a security layer, well, exploring the possibility of using either of this Solana or Cosmos network as a security layer for the fork new chain, and considering security without centralization. Last but not least, we're also we're going to discuss about the token gas pricing model. What would be like the appropriate pricing model for tokens in a context outside of Ethereum, focusing on the gas fees. We're going to try to take the conversation, the debating to these topics. Again, please feel free to ask your questions on the chat. So we're going to start. And first of all, thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for your time, Sam and Buffalo. We're going to start with this. Not without first saying that thank you so much for your involvement into this. I want to mention that when I invited them, particularly some started like asking questions about the context, to send him links so he can know more about what is happening, and so that is greatly appreciated. I know that this is going to be very, very important discussion, and we're going to learn a lot. So let's start. So I will ask for Sam to give like a brief introduction on the background, and then Buffalo, so we can start the discussion.
Great. Can you hear me?
Yes, perfectly.
Excellent. Okay. Yeah, thank you for the introduction. It's a little bit last minute, so I some of this will be off the cuff, but it's a topic that I'm super interested in, and I'm hoping that we can just have a kind of interactive session where you know, you all can ask questions and we can have a friendly debate. So I've been working in the Cosmos ecosystem for about 4 years now. I was at the ICF for 3 of those years. ICF is the nonprofit foundation associated with the kind of originating fundraiser. Although it's a pretty sprawling ecosystem at this point. Um, Many of you will know that Cosmos looks a little bit different than the Ethereum DeFi landscape. It's a it's a very heterogeneous environment. There is no single chain. It is, and so Cosmos is not. It's not something that you really map one to one with Ethereum. It's the way that I think about it. Cosmos is more of a design pattern to stack, where you can build your own layer one blockchain. Um, and I think this is one of the more recently this notion of like interconnected app chains has taken hold. This is something that we've been working on for 6 years now. So the whole kind of onboarding experience, the support structure is really designed around people doing exactly what you all are trying to do, launch a new chain. Um, there's a lot of little details and moving parts to deploying your own chain, but there's actually a really wonderful group of people who've done this many times and have been involved in lots of network launches. So there's a really wonderful kind of knowledge base to tap, just with the infrastructure providers, devs, and ecosystem participants. Um, so um, I was asked. I think someone in the Discord asked for me to just kind of comment on the the endgame proposal, and um, I'm not. It's a little bit hard to know what angle to come at it from, but um, one of the things that really stood out to me was the kind of nuance with which you all are thinking about governance. I think kind of this is one of Maker's superpowers. You all have a a really sophisticated governance ecosystem and set of participants that are um, kind of used to interacting with one another to actually like produce the maker system. All of those pieces need to be kind of interlocking in the right way, and um, and this is understanding the kind of like set of stakeholders and the way in which um, they are kind of incentivized to behave, particularly under stress. When in these kind of catastrophic scenarios is super important and something that the Cosmos ecosystem has thought about a lot. So minority protections um, and the interaction of bridge protocols on the sovereignty of a chain is something that like literally on day one we were thinking about, and the whole system is kind of like uh, built with that in mind. There is a lot of complexity and nuance to getting that right, and there's a lot of different configurations that are possible there. So yeah, that's maybe something that we can get into a little bit later. Um, there there are definitely some questions that I have. There's clearly a focus on performance that admittedly I don't fully understand kind of what the criteria are. So that's something I would love to kind of hear a little bit more about from your community. Um, And yeah, I mean, overall, I think I'm super excited and want to just kind of surface the right information for all of you to make a decision. So maybe I can pause there um, and let
Yeah,
Bufalo go.
that was good. That was good. And I'm also going to um link in the chat about your you write a comment with some things that you have already mentioned, like your background, and more where can we find more information into Cosmos, just in case if there is some certain topic that we did not discuss today. So I recommend everyone also to take it a look. Shout out to Blue as well for the question he asked earlier in the Discord. Yes. And now, Buffalo, please let us know a little bit about your background and what we need to know before starting this discussion.
Cool. Can you hear me? I think
Yes.
cool. So yeah, thanks for having me on here. My name's Lucas. I'm the co-founder and CEO at Jito Labs. We build MEV infrastructure on Solana. So been in the Solana ecosystem for about just over 2 years now, and we're pretty integrated into the Solana ecosystem. We built a validator, or we modified the Solana Labs validator client, which is the main validator client on the network for MEV. So, very familiar with not only the Solana ecosystem, but the validator client and like any modifications that Maker would want to make to the validator client to meet its whatever goals it has mentioned in the new chain. And then, yeah, I guess I'll kind of stop there. But we're pretty familiar with Solana and MEV on Solana. I see that's something we're going to talk about later. I know Sam is also very familiar with MEV from working at Skip. So looking forward to that conversation later.
Right, let's get started then. So the first question in more like an open question. What are the key features of your stack that you believe could be beneficial to Maker? Who wants to start? I see that Buffalo, you have your mic open, so I can give you the word to you.
Yeah. So I think I guess before I start out, I think Maker has been very heavily Ethereum focused for a while, and I think there was a lot of excitement and whatnot around switching to like the Solana net or Solana client. I think it's like important to like differentiate Solana the asset from the technology when looking at these conversations. I think there's a lot of opinions. People might hate Solana for various reasons, but I think for Maker's purposes, I think the Solana, like the token and the asset, is like pretty separate from any like conversations here. But I think the main thing about Solana is you get performance from the start, and I think it's built to scale to like thousands, tens of thousands, to like hopefully millions of transactions per second. Definitely have a long way to go there, but the network is live now. It's running at like hundreds to thousands of transactions per second. You kind of just like get that from the start with Solana, and there's Solana is performance is very important to the Solana community, and so you'll continue to get performance improvements from people working on the Solana client. I think efficiency is also very important. Kind of goes hand in hand with performance. A lot of the engineers at Solana Labs in our team were working on like operating systems before and like microcontrollers. So very like tiny devices and like things that you need to, when you're programming them, you have to be very thoughtful in how you're programming them. And so, I think efficiency is very important. From I think the app chain, the main strength of the app chain is like Cosmos or customization. I think you can also customize the Solana validator client in like consensus and things like that with Solana. And then, I think also like the ability to write in like Rust, C, C++, you can write your programs in there. And then there's also people that have built, I guess you could call them like translators. So you can write Python and JavaScript and it will get translated to code that can run inside the Solana virtual machine is also pretty cool. So I think like I would say like performance to summarize like the key features, I think is like performance. You can get some customization and then also you get to like you essentially get to inherit the performance improvements that Solana Labs and also Jump Crypto, the Fire Dancer, and like the new technology they're developing there for the performance of the new chain. Cool.
Thank you,
I think that's it
Lucas.
from my side.
Oh yeah, yes. Okay. Yeah, something else to add there, it's in his post also Rue mentioned about why Solana could be like the best fit, and he also mentions about the resilience that it had Solana when happened the FTX incident, when it comes to maintaining a strong developer community, reducing long-term costs, and ensuring access to high quality talent. That's what he mentions in the post that I want to also to point out. And about the adaptation as well, the Solana's code base has been, according to Runa, effectively for app chains, and he mentioned the PIF project. So I just want to mention to add.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Well, okay, thank you. And now let's go to Sam. The same question. Do you want me to mention it again, or is it okay?
No, I think I got it. So I would agree with a lot of what Lucas was saying. And Solana definitely is like built for high performance. That is going to be one of its kind of core strengths. The performance of a Cosmos chain is like is pretty significant. So maybe something that we can kind of query at the end is like, what is actually required of performance. I think one of your later questions was actually like getting into some numbers. I tried to pull some, so I can read this off later. But yeah, the main reason that people that development teams will choose to build a Cosmos chain is sovereignty. This is like something that we have thought really, really deeply about. Every aspect of the bridging protocol, the kind of native bridging protocol, AVC, the light client verification mechanism, the governance system itself, all of it has been, kind of ground up, built around the concept of sovereignty. So that just kind of has, it touches every part of the system in some way. And from a developer's perspective, I think engineers have a specific kind of notion of sovereignty. So Cosmos is really built for engineers to like modify everything. So the consensus protocol, the application framework, like all these things are customizable, and there's documentation for like each component. It is intended that a developer is going to walk up to the system and rip out the signing mechanism and like put their own in there. That they're going to add their own virtual machine, just develop their own like a new virtual machine. Like all of that is expected, and there's that means that the kind of developer surface area is absolutely massive. But I would say that like of the there's no other system that like tries to accommodate all of these different schemes, like ways to interact with the system as a developer. And there are projects that have used every single component of Cosmos in isolation. So projects that have just used IBC, projects that have just used Tendermint, projects that have just used the Cosmos SDK, or even the virtual machine that's kind of most popular in the ecosystem, Cosmosm. So yeah, kind of when I was saying Cosmos is a design pattern, it's like it's really an assemblage of these different components. There's a common set of choices there, but developers are really encouraged to kind of like make their own way. There are a number of features that I think are maybe worth mentioning. So one of the things that I've worked on a bunch is creating credible auctions. So we can do some pretty impressive stuff with by leveraging the validator set to ensure that proposers can't extort block builders, for instance. So this is a very powerful mechanism for reducing MEV. We are working on encrypted mempools. So this is a feature that might be highly relevant for makers' liquidations. We have some very advanced governance tooling. So kind of imagine the Gnosis safe, but like built into the Geth node. And you can use that to control various aspects of and parameters within the Geth node. We one of the other things that I work on at Skip is custom fee markets, and we have a laned mempool system. So you can really have a lot of bring a lot of creativity to how your fee market works. You can have certain users transact for free. You can kind of do differential pricing based on certain conditions and who's interacting with the system. Yeah, so it's kind of a a canvas for creating your own application, and a lot of ways that the maker application could be implemented and augmented with the Cosmos stack.
Thank you, Sam. And yes, definitely one of the benefits about the talent pool, and as you mentioned, the developer companies, like the independent developer companies, are some of the benefits from Cosmos and all that you have mentioned. And I'm going to read now here. Lucas wrote, Cosmos is definitely better at interoperability between other Cosmos chains, but Solana is good for canonical asset plus governance transfer too. Thank you. Now let's move on to the next question, which is, if you can give us more insights into the performance of the nodes. So let's just start with Lucas.
Yeah. So yeah, the performance of the nodes, I think Solana does have pretty high node requirements for mainnet, but I don't think that that is the same across every cluster that could run Solana. So you can imagine that Solana is very efficient, and when it's like moving bytes around inside the code, it's very efficient. Kind of as I was mentioning earlier, there's like operating systems and like low-level engineers that understand how computer processors work and how like memory works and things like that to basically leverage like physics to be very efficient. But I think that the current Solana mainnet, the node requirements are relatively high compared to other networks. But I think it's getting better. There was just a 1.16 update that came out that reduced the RAM requirements to it was in the 100 to 200 gigabytes before. Now it's around 32 gigabytes. So we're seeing like massive decreases in like the RAM required. And yeah, there's just a lot of accounts on mainnet. But as far as like the performance, I know that there is testnet, Solana testnet. There's a few thousand validators on Solana testnet. And for Solana transfers, I believe they've hit, I should go back and check this, but they've hit at least 20,000 transfers per second and potentially higher. So the performance is definitely there if you need it. And it kind of just depends on like, I don't know if I saw any like specifications from Maker, like it needs to do this many transfers per second, or we'd like to have this many AMM swaps, or like minting and burning and things like that. But pretty confident that it could handle several thousand transactions per second in the current form. And as we see like the network and engineers squeeze out more efficiency, it should be able to go up from there.
Thank you, Lucas. And to remind, yes. Oh yeah, go ahead.
I'll answer these questions in the chat. Or would you rather me? I don't know if this is being recorded. Should we talk about this on here, or should I answer them in the chat?
Yeah, that was what I was going to say. So yes, currently there's also questions in the chat that if you feel that it is relevant to answer in the moment, you can just now say it, like, or you can type it, whichever you prefer. Is there any particular question that you would like to answer by talking?
Yeah, I'll just answer the most recent question real fast and then hand it over to Sam. So someone asked, I heard it's difficult to run Solana in cloud services. Does the lower RAM configurations help nodes use cloud services? So yeah, on Solana mainnet, it is, you can run on Google Cloud or AWS, but those run on virtual machines, which is essentially like a layer on top of the actual hardware. So that is the main reason in that layer on top of the actual hardware slows you down. And so like Solana mainnet's very focused on high performance. So people recommend that you run on bare metal, which is essentially like there's no abstractions or anything. It's running on the true hardware itself. But I think with new chain, it depends on the performance requirements. For instance, you can run a Solana validator on a 4-core machine, not for mainnet, but for like a separate network that you create. And you can. So there's nothing, if you're just running a normal validator and it's sitting idle, it's not really doing that much. So you can run it on a separate machine that is pretty small. Potentially, you could run on the same node, same server hardware as like an Ethereum node. But if you want to really push the performance of the network, then it's better to throw more hardware at it. So I think that's kind of like a trade-off that the maker community needs to figure out is, if you want more performance, you need more hardware. So, where do you kind of draw the line at that?
Yeah, I'll my response is going to echo that.
Yes,
There,
yes.
I would
Go
add
ahead.
one other dimension, which is security. So, um, you there's kind of a design space here, depending on what your needs are. I'm guessing that Maker is going to want to be pretty like highly secure. So, um, uh, the way that one of the ways that you might address that is by using um, uh, threshold signatures and having redundant hardware in like multiple jurisdictions or something under the hood. There's several different options for that, but that comes at the cost of additional expense um, and additional coordination cost and potentially slower block times. That threshold signing or like threshold validators, I believe this is like a Cosmos idea that has now made its way to Ethereum. In Ethereum, it's called DVT, but we have similar systems, and we actually I've worked a bunch with Obol as well, so they're going to be supporting Cosmos. Yeah, I can read out a couple metrics that I got from the various teams. So right now, the you can actually get a relatively comparable block time from a Cosmos chain, so, depending on the val set size. So, Say is one of the faster blockchains in Cosmos. It has a 300 millisecond block time, which is primarily kind of bottlenecked by the P2P layer, which is something that we're starting to work on now. And so if you go down to a smaller validator size, you can go very quick. If you want to have a larger number of validators, that's going to mean that you need it requires additional P2P overhead. So you're going to end up with a longer block time, and of course you need to pay those validators. So there's additional expense there. The Cosmos Hub has a kind of sharding system. So there's like multiple chains that are run by the Cosmos Hub, and one of those chains has it has 175 validators, and they're at about 2-second block time. And the next upgrade should get them like sub-second block time. So this is not, it's definitely going to be a little bit slower than Solana. This is, a real trade-off. But yeah, this I think again kind of comes down to like what makers' needs are. Is like 300 millisecond block time okay? Is 1 second block time okay? Um, that's something that you all are going to need to do some soul searching to find out. And yeah, I mean, I would say that this is kind of the same for probably both Solana and Cosmos. Like these things are improving day by day. So like the performance requirements of the hardware, the efficiency of the software, the degree to which you can push the software to have additional throughput. All of this is kind of that all of that is kind of like being brought down over time. So I don't think there's really a bad choice here.
Thank you, Sam. And yes, about the performance requirements, as far as I'm concerned, and here I also ask team members, ADs, there is no much detail, there's no much information about it, and we will have it like gradually over time. But there's not a specific clarification. But what do you think it will be necessary to be added to the performance requirements or new change that you consider that it should be it should be a must? Which yeah, Lucas.
Sorry, what was the question?
About the performance requirements. There is, as you know, there is not yet. So what should be included, like necessary to be included there?
Yeah, I think when in like the Ethereum context, I think that engineers often think of the performance requirements in terms of block times and gas used. And gas is essentially different operations within the network cost a different amount of gas. So you can tweak the block time and the gas limit and kind of play around with those numbers. And I think that's what people typically think about in like the EVM context. But I think even like dumbing it down a little bit to like what type of like operations do you want to perform on the chain, and like how many do you want to do per second, I think would be helpful. And so yeah, like you can imagine like we want to transfer like the maker token, and we want it to support 10,000 transfers per second. Maybe we want to do some like minting and burning of assets, and we want to do like 1,000 of those per second. And then maybe there's like AMMs or some other decentralized exchanges, and we'd like to do like X per like 100 per second or something like that. So I think like linking the like real world application to the number of like transactions per second, I think is probably the easiest way to like align on something in like in the specification.
Thank you, Lucas. That was actually very, very helpful. Let's move on to the next part about the validators. So what do you think are the costs and requirements associated with setting up validators, and what's the best way to incentivize validators? Which one would you like to go first?
Sam, you want to take this one?
Yeah. So I've done a bunch of like modeling of validator costs, and there's a range here. It depends on some of the factors that we were just discussing. So an at-home validator that's running something on a Raspberry Pi, like, is comfortable with like low uptime, that can be done relatively cheaply, almost for free. If you have high availability requirements, high uptime requirements, and you require like a direct BGP connection or something like that, then it's going to be more expensive. There's also this kind of redundancy issue that I was just kind of discussing in the chat, where you may have like a failover system, and that's going to increase the costs. So there are validators in Cosmos that pretty commonly run a chain for a couple $100, like $300 or something per month. And then there are validators that are doing several $1,000s per month, that are super high availability and redundancy and such. That's for kind of infrastructure. That's for basically everything except the labor requirements. The labor costs are a big. They can actually kind of dominate the equation here, depending on the size of the validator. So if you're running one validator, you're paying for like one employee to run that validator. If you're running 100 validators, you probably you can amortize that cost across many validators, so it kind of gets a lot smaller. So who ends up participating as a validator, what their configuration is, where they're located, all these things are factors. But yeah, just to kind of reiterate, anywhere between a couple hundred and a couple $1,000 is a good approximation. And a lot of those, where you're going to fall in that spectrum is going to depend on application requirements, security requirements, things like that.
Thank you, Sam. Lucas, would you like to answer the same question?
Yeah, the question was, what are the costs and requirements with setting up validators in your ecosystem? Yeah, so I think, so I guess to give you an idea, on Solana mainnet, as I mentioned earlier, the performance is pretty high. And so servers on that network cost anywhere from $300 a month to $1,000. That doesn't mean that like if you run your own maker, like new chain is going to be a separate chain. And I think a lot of the costs associated with the 300 to 1,000 depend on how much activity is going on in the network. So there's no reason that like you could run, you could potentially run new chain on like $100 a month server, or potentially just buy a server and use it at home if you wanted to, if there wasn't that much activity. But yeah, I mean, there's, I think the server costs are the main thing. And then similar to Sam's point, like you need someone to like set it up and manage it, kind of like running like any validator network. You need someone to manage it and build monitoring and alerts and stuff like that. But there are people on the Solana network that have a little bit of command line experience that can set it up and run it. And there's a lot of alerting tooling, and you can get like Telegram bots and PagerDuty and Slack notifications and Discord. And it mostly just runs itself. So yeah, I mean, there's anyone from like someone that has a little bit of command line experience to full institutions like Coinbase, Figment, P2P, all those guys that are like running professional like validators as a business that can set it up. And then, yeah, I guess the best way to incentivize, I guess real quick, the best way to incentivize validators, I think, is just money. So yeah, giving validators money, either as a base inflation, and maybe as a percentage of the transactions that they process, so that they are incentivized to process more transactions as well.
Definitely the best way. Yes, I was going to say the thing to the people that are commenting and asking questions. Shout out to Facundo, shout out to Blue. Bonapulica, thank you for asking questions that are, of course, are helping us to understand a little bit more and that are relevant in order to know which could be the best code base for new chain. Let's move on to the next part about consensus mechanism in order to avoid an attack. So what consensus mechanisms do you recommend for your stack? What's the minimum number of validators required to maintain security?
Yeah. So the consensus mechanism that is most frequently used in Cosmos is Comet BFT, also frequently called Tenorman. And it actually is similar in a lot of ways to Solana's consensus mechanism. There's a couple of key differences, but it's a fast finality consensus protocol. It's a BFT-based consensus protocol. Tenorment is a two-phase BFT protocol. I mentioned this a little bit in the MakerDAO forum post, but actually the primary the consensus protocol is actually designed in large part in order to enable the kind of best bridging experience possible. So one of the key considerations is that creating a light client verification mechanism that is lightweight and performant, because this is the basically opposing chains interact with their counterparties by running this light client and verifying the headers and validator weights on the counterparty chain. And something that we're working on is also verifying execution of a counterparty chain. So at that point, you end up looking a lot like a rollup. You're verifying consensus and state updates. You're getting state roots. Yeah, there are alternatives. People have used the Cosmos SDK with alternative consensus mechanisms. I don't think that there's any really running in production. They're kind of more experiments, but it is possible. There's also some interesting initiatives that so there's a second project that's building a kind of spec compliant Comet BFT implementation that's just like a lot simpler. That's one of its main advantages. So it's just like easier to modify. That's called Gordian. And then there's a project, Anoma, that is building kind of a Tendermint-inspired consensus protocol that is intended to be kind of AVCI compliant. So you could plug it into Cosmos SDK chains. Yeah, so those are both options. I think a lot of the decision making as to which consensus protocol you all would want to use comes down to, of course, some of your product requirements, the amount of testing in production that you'd like to see. So some of these other consensus implementations are a little bit newer. And then just the timeline. So you said this chain development initiative is going to be over the course of 3 years or so. In 3 years, the maturity of all of these products will have been upgraded significantly. So if anybody's interested in that, I can kind of go into more detail. But yeah, the kind of standard consensus protocol is typically Comet BFT in Cosmos.
Yes, I think that's the way giving details, and when it comes to numbers, it's better to write it in the chat. So yeah, if there is any missing relevant information that it's more specific in detail, please go ahead and type it. And Lucas, what about you?
So yeah, I mean, I think the Solana, I'm not like intimately familiar with the consensus mechanism used on Solana. I think it's pretty similar to Cosmos. I think, it's been pretty battle tested. I think that, they're always working on like performance improvements and things like that to make it faster. And then there is a team called Tiny Dancer working on light clients, and hopefully that goes live soon. I think the current like consensus mechanism should be fine. But you could certainly add a different consensus mechanism if you wanted to. It probably wouldn't be as easy as Cosmos, where I think it's built to support many different consensus mechanisms, but it's not out of it's like not out of reach to like customize consensus a little more. But you want to be pretty careful with customizing consensus. So would definitely like want to. It's a trade-off to make. Do you want to use something that's battle tested, or do you want to customize it and potentially risk a bug? But yeah, I think I imagine the current Solana consensus mechanism is probably fine unless there's other unique requirements.
Thank you, Lucas. Let's move on to, because we're almost in time. Another relevant topic about it was about what's the best way to integrate Cosmos, what's the best way to integrate Solana with Ethereum to safeguard GANs, funds, sorry, to safeguard funds. And the other part about is it best to have a specialist with expertise in developing with Solana stack, with Cosmos stack, or is it common for teams experienced with the EVM stack to transition the new stack?
I
Let's
can
start
go.
with the first question about. Okay.
So the best way to there are a number of different ways to interact with Ethereum. The uh, so okay, maybe the best way to start here is if you actually squint at what rollups are trying to do, it looks very, very similar to what IVC looks like. So basically, these are two chains that are trying to validate one another's state, and they're basically sending proof to one another. Um, on the rollup side, typically validation occurs by running a full node of Ethereum. That is largely because Ethereum is not really built to for light client verification. And then um, on the Ethereum side, there's typically some state root validation that's going on in order to ensure that the fork choice rule has been adhered to. So this is to say that the some of the same design considerations and design patterns actually apply here. So things like um, basically like a balance of power between multiple entities. So in a bunch of these roll-up systems, there's a fallback mechanism where you can, like a security committee, for instance, so that you can have you can design similar mechanisms. You can put a security committee or the fork choice rule that's actually deferring the certain rights to those actors on either side of the bridge. So you can put it on the Cosmos side, or you can put it on the Ethereum side. These are all design choices that you can make. The best way to interact with Ethereum would be to to have the maker chain run an Ethereum node similar to a rollup. We are developing, there's a number of teams that are developing light clients for Ethereum. They're a little bit hacky because Ethereum is not totally built for this, but there's ways to kind of reduce the overhead here. And then there are very advanced systems for creating zero knowledge proofs of the consensus state updates to pass over to Ethereum. So that allows you to have a bilateral verification of both chains. In general, I think you want to have kind of adhere to like principle of least authority here. So you want to make sure that high security operations are not exposed to actors that that shouldn't have that kind of ambient authority. So you may want to put certain operations on the Ethereum side. You may want to create a kind of committee that includes both Ethereum, an Ethereum multisig, and the validators of the Cosmos chain. And you may want to have certain degrees of redundancy in bridge verification. So there are multiple teams that are building these bridges. Maybe you actually require that the state route that's passed from both bridges be identical in order for state updates to happen between them. This is a very involved and complex topic, so I feel like I kind of missed the mark on making it accessible to everybody, but yeah, there's a number of ways that you can kind of practice defensive engineering techniques to make this as safe as possible.
We could please share also links that might be helpful that we could read and reread if we don't understand at first. That will be also great. Lucas, would you like to add something, or should I go ahead with the next question?
I don't think I have that much to add. I guess like you could use a bridge to bridge like messages between a chain and Ethereum. And then yeah, I guess on the specialist piece, I think you asked that as well. But I used to write Solidity and learned SVM by doing a hackathon. I think you can just dive in and start writing code and figure it out. It doesn't have there's some unique things with programming SVM. Like you have to declare all the state that you want to read from and write to up front with read and write locks. So basically makes it a little harder on the developer, but makes it safer as well, because you can basically you can do checks to make sure that people aren't going to get rugged. But and then but it has some strengths as well compared to EVM. Like there's like no no recursion, and some other features that make it nice as well. But I think people, it's like if you're writing language like C or C++ and you want to learn Rust, I think the best way to do that is to just start writing code. And I think that maker engineers have built a pretty complicated system already, so I think they could figure it out.
Yeah.
Yes.
Just realizing I didn't say anything about having specialists, so I was just going to comment on that. I would just echo that sentiment that, I mean, the maker code base is one of the most complex and highly tested. I mean, the entire system has been formally verified. So I have no doubt that maker engineers could rise to the challenge. And this is one maybe trait that Cosmos engineers share is much of the stack is formally verified. So the entire consensus protocol, like client mechanism, IBC, is all formally verified, which gives developers building on top a lot of confidence. I'll actually make one more comment about just bridging. I do think there's a big differentiator between Cosmos and Solana. So Solana is only able to interact with other chains via third-party committee bridges right now. So Wormhole, Axelar, things like that. And this is not how IBC works. So it's not how I would recommend. It's not how rollups work either. So this is a two-party interaction where the validator set of one chain is interacting directly with the validator set of another. And the security properties of that relationship are defined by the committees themselves. There's no additional committee you need to be concerned with. As far as like having developers that in order to help onboard into the ecosystem, there's a developer training program that that has been quite successful. The code base is in the Cosmos SDK and Tendermint code base are in Go, which tends to be a little bit easier to walk up to and understand. The specification is also extremely detailed. There's, I mentioned this in the forum post, there, if I had to kind of characterize the Cosmos developer docs, it's like at the specification level, they're like extremely detailed and sophisticated. At the introductory level, they're like really great. In the middle, there's like a lot of work we need to do. So when we were helping to onboard DYDX, for instance, there was a pretty collaborative set of community members that were kind of jumping in and giving them some pointers, and this is where you should look for this kind of thing in the code base. There's a very everyone in the ecosystem is very approachable and like eager to help project like Maker have the best onboarding experience possible. But there definitely are some things that are a little hard to find unless you've been around for a while.
Oh, thank you, Sam. Yes, I mean, MakerDAO code base is complex. MakerDAO itself is complex, and this has been said as well by Ron himself. Good to know about the developer training program that you mentioned. Is there anything that you would like to add, Lucas? If not,
No, I don't think so.
Okay. The last part, it was regarding the token gas. So given that it will be operating outside of Ethereum, what are your thoughts on the appropriate gas pricing model? Let's start with you, Lucas.
Yes. So the I guess you can. I don't have like a strong opinion with what token is used for gas. I think I'm an engineer. I'm not really an economist, so I will let the professionals handle that. But from a engineering standpoint, like you should be able to use any token that you like program into the chain as gas. So if they want to use maker token or DAI or something else, it's kind of up to them. I think one thing that's pretty interesting about Solana compared to Ethereum is that you can process transactions in parallel on Solana. And so, if you haven't heard of you can like Google like Solana local fee markets and read about them. But I'll put that in the chat. But it kind of unlocks potentially more multi-dimensions in like pricing of resources. So on Ethereum, there's one block, it's 21 million compute or 21 million gas limit, and like everyone kind of pays the same base fee. And on Solana, the current fee mechanism is very simple. It's just like a flat fee. And so, and then there's a priority fee that you can pay. But because you can process things in parallel and you know what pieces of state will be accessed ahead of time, you can get a little more granular with how you price things. So I think it's kind of interesting and it's very like underexplored. There are people that are writing about these like multi-dimensional fee markets in the context of like Solana mainnet that the maker community might find interesting. I think Vitalik has written about these as well. But there's you have a little more flexibility in like the fee market as well. I think there's a lot of exploration that you can do there.
So this is definitely one of the areas of like creativity that I think is pretty cool about Cosmos. So you can do very unique things. This is one of the things that we're working on at Skip. So we have this laned mempool, which allows you to basically create different fee models for different transaction types, or have the application or the chain be responsive to certain conditions. So you can actually modulate the how the different fee models work under certain conditions. Just as an example, you could make it so that all maker delegates transact for free, and they have like a certain quota of transactions that they can send per week or something like that. You can create. I mentioned earlier like credible auctions. So most chains have this kind of double auction thing where you're like paying for inclusion. There's like this inclusion fee, base fee, and then you're paying for the bid. You can actually just unify those and make it so that it's just one fee. You pay the bid, and that's it. You can One of the very cool things that we've done is like make it so that validators can have dedicated lanes for certain transaction types. So we have this in protocol Oracle system, which requires all validators submit like a price update, for instance, every single block, or they'll get slashed. So this is part of consensus. Like the chain cannot advance if the validator has not submitted this transaction. And you can price that however you want. You can actually price it through this kind of through the slashing rate of non-performance. So you can also denominate the fee in whatever you want. So it could be in ETH, it could be in DAI, it could be in the new token. And then you can also implement exchange kind of automatic exchange rates, like an AMM that's integrated into the fee market. So maybe I'm denominate like the unit of account for the fee market is in DAI, but I want to pay in Ether. I just happen to have Ether in my wallet. There's actually an on-chain exchange rate, and I just pay in Ether, and it's converted at the spot price and included. So there's just like an immense amount of customizability here. You can have it tied very deeply into the application. So yeah, if anybody's interested in this, happy to chat about it offline. Also link the block SDK, which has some information about some of this.
I see a lot of people typing, and that will be the end of the friendly debate. Thank you so much to both of you. There are comments on the chat, and I'm going to give you both a couple of minutes in order to say something that you haven't mentioned, that haven't been asked, that you want to point out maybe from the comments. So let's get started. And again, thank you so much. Let's start with you, Sam.
Oh, sorry, what do you want? I was just trying to read all the comments that I missed.
It's okay. So this is the goodbye minute that you have.
Ah.
If there is anything relevant that you would like to say, this is the moment. More relevant, I mean.
Mainly just I really appreciate the invitation. I also have interacted a bit with Lucas in other contexts, so it's really nice to see you here. And you know, these are like pretty complex systems. There's a lot to kind of untangle. Please just ask. I am probably going to miss some of this in the chat, but like, you know, you can DM me on Twitter or Telegram. I'm like very available to answer questions. And yeah, just thanks again, everybody, for your attention.
Yeah, just want to echo. Just want to echo what Sam said. Thanks for having me on. Pretty cool to talk about Solana, and yeah, I think there's a lot of good options out there for what platforms to build on. I think if I think all of us hope that more activity happens on chain, and I think that if that future is realized, then I think performance will be like pretty critical to that. And I think for like performance sensitive applications, Solana is like proven itself as like the most high performant chain so far. I think there's a lot of customization you can do to it. And yeah, I think it'd be a great place for maker community to build. I know that the Solana community would definitely open you guys, open would welcome you guys with open arms, and yeah, feel free to like ping me. You should have my information in the chat if you have any questions on Solana. And yeah, I also think it's worth mentioning that I guess it's important to think about the Solana technology is separate from the Solana asset, so kind of like independent of your opinions of the token. It's important to look at the technology and the specifications of what you guys want to do, and kind of make the decision based on that. But yeah, thanks for having me.
No, thank you both of you for your time. I know this is our topics that are sometimes very hard to make it like friendly so more people can understand. And I appreciate the fact that you have most of it to explain it in a way that most people can understand it. I linked the chat also the call because this has been recorded, actually broadcasting. So there you have it. There is the the record so you can rewatch it. And yes, that will be all for Sam and Lucas. Thank you so much once again. We do have more topics, but we feel like this is just too much to talk about it today, since the call has been more than 1 hour and not on an easy topic. So again, we're going to do this. This was these slides we're going to do next protocol scope. And just a reminder about the draft that I'm going to mention in here. I'm going to send the link once again. Not missing. It has been also on the Sovereign Finance General channel, and here it is one more time. Again, to everyone that has been commenting and answering questions, big shout out to Bonapublica, Facundo, Blue, for to make this the most active. And so I'm going to put the last slide. This is all. Thank you so much for your time and attention. We'll see you next week with the next scope. Bye bye, everyone.